The Musou genre has seen plenty of crossovers, adding everything from giant anime mechs to superpowered pirates to the action over time. While the developers at Omega Force initially stuck very close to their winning formula, more recent crossovers with Nintendo characters have revealed a willingness to experiment. Today, we're talking about Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. Sit back as we review the game for you and let you know whether it is worth your bank. Now, this is the second warrior-style or Musou game for Fire Emblem, and another collaboration between Koei Tecmo and a Nintendo property, and this one is pretty damn good. It depends on two things. Number 1, if you love Fire Emblem, and number 2, if you love these warrior-style games which are a bit more of an acquired taste. And they got the marriage of the two genres almost perfectly here. It just makes so much sense. It feels like Dynasty Warriors. Big battlefields, plotting where to head next on a map, and just slaughtering thousands of dumb dudes. But the level of more Fire Emblem style strategy and micromanaging stuff layered on top of here is pretty staggering. Things to do. There's a lot going on in this game. A ton of base camp activities to do, ways to train, things to manage, relationships to build, people to talk to, gifts to give. Then, of course, overall map resource strategy, classes, items, leveling up, and then moment-to-moment in-battle strategy and orders. Now, it's still action hack and slash, but there's way more than just action. It can still get a little repetitive from time to time, but it could also be entertaining, and if you love this stuff and world and these characters, you'll be happy here. Story. Story-wise, you can consider this like an alternate what-if style story in the Three Houses universe. No spoilers here, just the basic setup. You play as a new male or female character that you create, who is a mercenary on a little adventure who happens to stumble into a much larger world. You pretty instantly encounter a villain that is a very significant character from Three Houses, and it's really cool, and you also quickly realize you're also linked to this supernatural, otherworldly entity who bestows you with some crazy abilities. Now, as you slowly try to uncover what the deal is with that and everything, you end up running into the OG gang. You know them, you love them, Dimitri, Edelgard, and Claude, and they very quickly swoop you up into their ranks and right into their world of Fire Emblem politics. You know, warriors, clergymen, kings, all that, and things get very complicated. Now, like Three Houses, you choose one of the houses here and you get what seems to be a specific branch of story. You're very quickly thrust into some more character stuff with your leader. Keep in mind, these are just lengthy first impressions, but I'm really into the story. It definitely feels a bit crazier than Three Houses for obvious reasons. More supernatural, more chaos, more spin-off feel, but that's what makes it kind of cool, to see this world and these characters in a slightly different situation with some different rules and just room for things to get crazier. It may feel a little bit less personal at times. The character stakes may not always be as strong, but I still say there are some strong moments, and you can still pursue and build these friendships and learn a little bit more about characters at least. The story is also quite subjective. Some people are ride or die for it, so you might love it way more or you might have some very particular nuanced issues. Gameplay. Speaking of pace, it's not paced super well. The prologue is long and it feels like there are endless tutorial messages, but stick with it. Once Chapter 4 hits and you're set out on your own a bit more, it really picks up. Gameplay-wise, it can look to the average person like mindless, endless, repetitive hack and slashing, but it feels really satisfying. The abilities at your disposal, the amount at your fingertips, using items, linking with other characters, working with other special characters right on the battlefield, and finally unleashing some of those special abilities, it feels really satisfying for a long time. Expect the flair of a big explosive attack, cruising through a battlefield or a castle town, just capturing every point, or killing a boss as your whole army is at the end of their rope. The situations might not always look thrilling on screen to the casual person, but they are fun. Limitations. The only thing is that the camera absolutely sucks. This is not a new thing for fans of this genre, but yeah, it gets messy pretty often. The lock-on isn't great, and the camera sometimes just can't keep up with all your cool moves. It's also not the hottest thing in the world. It's definitely working overtime. It doesn't have the greatest frame rate, it's not super sharp, it's not super detailed, but in terms of the actual characters and the music and the presentation, it makes up for it with that. A generous amount of voice acting, good cutscenes, and some visual flair do go a long way. That's one of the few complaints though. Map. Anyway, the game is broken into a war map for each chapter, and each contains main quests and side quests. So yeah, the side quests might not always be as exciting, but there are so many reward incentives. so it might feel like a grind, but at least so far, it feels like some of the rewards are really worth it. Plus, surveying the map and clearing it out and getting each and every reward and strategy resource used right per chapter, like if you're a completionist, there's a good amount here to really feel like you gotta accomplish something other than just killing everything, especially when it comes back to the base camp. The hub areas are large and there's a ton to do. There are shops, item vendors, and weapon vendors. You can cook for bonuses and you can engage in chores to take care of the place. Polish the weapons, clean the horses, stuff like that. Now doing that and choosing certain characters to do it improves your relationships, as does certain choices in the game, giving gifts, conversation, and battlefield stuff. A lot of the house players are around as well as some new faces, so there's a lot to dive in and just revisit some of these characters and walk around, hidden things to collect. Rewards. You have a certain amount of daily ability points to spend around the base, so if you want to do a bonding activity or train, you need to choose wisely. Training is key because it can bulk level up a few characters, and there are a really generous amount of character classes and depth and abilities therein, like for the main character. Swapping as other characters on the fly lets you easily test out some other approaches, and then you can go from there in terms of leveling up, and there's a lot of quality of life stuff that goes a really long way. You can just instantly warp to any spot in the hub town areas, instead of always trotting around slowly, and getting around battlefields and fight is surprisingly zippy, even if the on-screen map can get a little cluttered. Some of the battlefield strategy stuff, it's all chaos of course, but choosing certain units to go one way while you go the other, or having some person hold down the fort, all that is satisfying, because eventually if you meet up, or when a random side objective pops up mid-battle and then you divert some people to go save someone or capture a new point, you can feel like a real battlefield force of nature at a point, and if your whole team is optimized and you take the time to do the RPG stuff, it can be fun. I didn't find a lot of the loot thrilling, which is a bummer though, not the end of the world. But yeah, maybe it gets better towards the end of the game, but overall all the RPG stuff, all the strategy stuff, I think works very well. Game modes. Oh, and we forgot to mention there are 3 difficulty modes, and there's also a normal mode and a classic mode, where if you choose classic mode, you have to deal with the ramifications of characters actually dying on the battlefield. You know, like Fire Emblem. So having those levels of options, that level of player choice is great. Some people might like Fire Emblem but not dig the strategy stuff and want to come here for the killing. Some people really like the Fire Emblem strategy and just want to see these characters so they can still get a little bit more in-depth stuff. If you want to crank it all up, there's a surprising level of enough strategy where hard mode and permadeath is probably really satisfying to some of you, and also after a bit you can unlock, during battles, split screen with another player. Final thoughts. Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes is a great game with a lot to offer and is suitable for different types of players like it's mentioned earlier in the video. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching.